Okay, right. That's working. Turn the quality down so it doesn't eat my internet. I have to go back in. It's very silly, this, I'll be honest. You have to do all the sort of all this in this way.
That sound a bit long-winded.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I hate it. How do I edit the end? I do apologise about this, guys.
That's right. Yeah, no worries.
You have to paste in all the tags individually as well. Like you couldn't just take a list of them and paste them in that way. You have to go in line by line. Although, at least I get to use the skills that I learned in my data entry job.
Everything has a purpose.
Just Control C and Control V all the time. Right, I think that's sorted. Close that. Okay, I'm assuming you are, but is everyone ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. There we go. They say a race weekend is a marathon, not a sprint, but for Lewis Hamilton, it was almost pretty much over inside 200 meters. Valtteri Bottas takes the top brass in the sprint as the world champions had a nightmare before tomorrow's Grand Prix. Welcome back to the Grid Talk podcast. Hosting today will be me, Owain Medford, and joining me are Steve Jackson from Formula Shakedown.
Good morning.
Sports journalist Mikael Kataja.
Hi.
And Aaron Harper from the Five Red Lights podcast.
Hi, guys.
So today we'll be getting into our sort of analysis and reaction for the Italian Grand Prix. But before I do that, I just want to thank the people who have reviewed the show. So what we do is we ask that if you could take 5 to leave a 5-star review on our podcast platform of your choice, on our podcast platform, and then we can then shout you out at the start of the show. So today we've got, oh goodness, I didn't look at the names beforehand, so I'm going to have to do this on the fly. Sasnorsko21 from Canada, not underscore Poshmark from the USA, and I don't know how to say that, Kirk Stedge from the USA as well. It's great to have your 5-star reviews. Thank you guys for listening. So to just sort of get into the show, obviously we'll start with Valtteri Bottas, who took the win, led from the front, and took a pretty commanding win. I think was kind of expected in some ways, but him being a Mercedes and he just sort of lead away. But I think everyone kind of expected that he wouldn't be the leading Mercedes driving away from Max. I'll start with you, Mikael.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a very good, one of the best performances that Bottas has had probably this whole year. Yeah, one of his best starts. Definitely, also the restart was quite good to be able to pull away from Verstappen that early on. But I mean, yeah, had Hamilton had a normal start, I don't think we would have seen Bottas leading for too long probably. But I guess he got lucky in that case that Lewis is now further behind than what was expected.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of luck, bad luck by Lewis, I guess, to get Will Spin off the start. But it's almost it's quite sad almost that Valtteri has become good and done a Lewis-esque start is what I would say. That kind of dominant performance, and he's out. This is the weekend that he's essentially been told he's out. Luckily, he's got a seat, so he's not hunting for one. But this would be the kind of performance you'd do if you wanted to keep a seat. Next we'll move down to the person who would actually take the pole tomorrow, who is Max Verstappen, and I think that maybe he obviously knew that there was almost no point in trying to get trying to take a risk getting it, because he's Valtteri Bottas was obviously going to start from the back anyway, Aaron. So do you think maybe Verstappen was sort of comfortable and just kind of saving it almost, taking this opportunity just to get a run in the car, get some time in the car, and almost treat it like a test session?
Yeah, absolutely. I think once it became apparent to him that he wasn't going to catch Bottas, it was probably more about managing the miles on the engine and not putting it through too much stress. And going into the race, he knew that if he made a sensible start and held position, he was guaranteed a front row start for tomorrow. So for that to end up being pole position, I think that's, as good as he could have hoped for, obviously. But it's a step up from what he was expecting. He didn't need to do any more than he did this afternoon. And that is the mark of a champion in waiting, that they do exactly what they need to do when they need to do it. And what impresses me most at the moment is he's not just thinking, I've got to go and win every race and win the championship that way. He's thinking bigger picture, make sure I bag the points, make sure I keep everything out of trouble. And he's just constantly in the top three. And that sort of consistency is going to get him a world championship at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that Fernando Alonso in a very bad car at the time, obviously in 2012. That's what took him to right on the cusp of a championship. And I remember him saying at the time, in an interview, that if we have a car that's worse than the others, we can take it to the last race, and if we have a car that's the same as the others or better than the others, then we can win the championship a few races early. I think Mercedes are going to push them a little bit further, but you're right, Verstappen is really just showing the mark of a champion and showing maturity beyond his years, that they even had to teach Fernando at Renault at the time, all those years ago. Steve, behind Max Verstappen, who sort of someone we thought might challenge him a little bit more in the race, but unfortunately didn't. We got Daniel Ricciardo. I think going into this race, you'd think that the McLarens would have been able to swallow up the Red Bull down one straight and just be gone because of the way, how much, they've got the Mercedes power and they're that much faster. But do you think it kind of puts a kind of, not sour note, but dampens the expectations for the race tomorrow with Max's ability to just kind of not be eaten up by the McLarens in the sprint?
I wondered if it was just a clever bit of strategy that McLaren were sort of keeping in their back pocket just in case Lewis did manage to get past Lando, and then have Daniel there to basically back him up and have two cars there to make life a wee bit difficult for him. I think it's tricky to get a handle on where anyone sits. McLaren and every other team, because the weekend format is just so random, and we don't really have a good grasp on when they do their,
when they typically do like their long runs and that sort of thing, as per a normal race weekend, is very different. So I'm not 100% sure whether that's pure pace or whether there was, or you know, whether where Daniel ended up was pure pace, or whether he was just making sure he was within eye shot of Lando just in case he needed help with Lewis, basically, just to try and keep him at bay, because this was their golden opportunity to make sure that they are able to, you know, create a bit of a gap with Ferrari, considering they're the main constructor sort of target. So yeah, really good performance. I don't know if it necessarily suggests that sort of pace that you know, for a full race distance tomorrow, but yeah, if Daniel's able to just get his head down and just sort of, you know, keep to a steady pace like he did today, like in sector 2 especially, he was a good 2/10 up on Lando. You know, just you know, going off what I was seeing on my end, and sector 3 is a wee bit faster as well. So he has got pace there, but I don't know whether that was because Lando was either A, distracted with Lewis, or B, like I said before, whether they were playing some sort of strange strategy just in case Lewis did manage to get stuck between the two of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you say that. I mean, the part that I took out from that was that maybe actually the McLarens thought we've run soft tyres. Maybe even with the safety car, we just back it off a bit because we're not going to lose much. And, you know, Lewis either goes past anyway and gets us, or we can just keep him behind. But yeah, I think there might have been sort of some game playing there. That's something I hadn't considered. After that, obviously, we've got the second Mercedes, and just coming back to you, Mikael, it seemed that Lewis Hamilton couldn't really make a dent in Lando once he got to about 0.6 of a second. He just wasn't fast enough in a straight line for that. Yeah,
it was very surprising that he wasn't able to get as close to Lando to really even launch an attack. You know, they're both Mercedes-powered cars, and I mean McLaren, I think, has been topping up even the speed traps this weekend. But still, I mean, Mercedes is supposed to be the fastest car. I mean, they got a 1-2 in quali yesterday, so you would have imagined that he would have at least been able to launch an attempt. I mean, maybe there's a part of that Lewis just didn't want to risk any more in the race and was like, well, starting P4, not the worst. It's not great, especially with Max being on pole. But at the same time, you know, if I stick to the inside in turn 1 with Lando and then we both crash out, then suddenly you're starting at the back with Bottas and with Verstappen having free reign. Well, he almost already has free reign tomorrow, but even much better chance of, you know, extending his lead in the championship. So it might have been also that he was a bit conservative with that, but I hope that's not, you know, I hope Bottas doesn't fall into that same trap tomorrow and, you know, get stuck somewhere around P10, P9 because he can't follow other cars or attack other cars.
Yeah, hopefully that's not indicative of the race performance of the Mercedes, particularly in traffic. And also, I think what you said comes up to what the way that sort of Lewis may have raced it against Lando. He's almost sort of anonymous. I've realised, you know, the way I've asked the question, but he's almost sort of anonymous and just did exactly what he needed to do and get himself a third place start, which is a nice place to be. Mm. But it comes back to almost what Toto said, which is something along the lines of, you know, the 4 races, if you make a non-points finish, that's 4 races that you've got to, that the other guy can come second and still be ahead of you. And I think, you know, it's almost that Lewis Hamilton can't risk that, which I think, Aaron, is probably why he didn't go for this, you know, the lungy moves that we've seen Lewis maybe in the past too.
Yeah, I always think of his overtake on Raikkonen in 2007. When he's coming up behind someone down into the Rettifilo. But I think the correct me if I'm wrong, but the braking distance just isn't big enough with these current cars. Perhaps they're just too good to almost get past. And obviously the turbulent air, we know the issues with that. And following through the parabolica, and of course that Mercedes is designed to be at the front. It's never been designed to come through the field. So I wasn't really surprised to see Hamilton get stuck And like you say, I think he was playing the percentages. He knew that there was a bigger picture at hand. If he gets the start right tomorrow, he could conceivably be in the lead. He could be second and on the tail of Max. So that there's a bigger picture at play for Lewis. And he wasn't going to risk it just for a single point against a McLaren that, okay, I don't think Lando would turn in on him, but if you lock a break or catch him by surprise, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point you make. We've seen it's all too easy for people to get taken out, and this is the one place on the calendar where it's such a long run to the first corner that you can end up there with very cold tires, and we've seen lockups in numerous support races, even midway through the race. So I think you're 100% correctly. He could be in the lead. You got to play the percentages at this point, and I think it's probably indicative of how the performance has gone. After that, we've got the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, Steve, and it's just, I think it's a decent performance, but it's not where Ferrari could be, but also it's, I think, as high up as they're going to get, really, at this sort of at Monza.
They're still paying for last year. I think in terms of just how that car's built and what it was sort of designed to do with the equipment they had at the time before they got their wrist slapped. They were running basically a garage door on the rear wing. I think they were the only team who had like any sort of discernible, rear wing angle. Everybody else is basically running T-trays. So, they are struggling basically with just general aerodynamic performance. From what I understand, any shallower angle of attack on that rear wing basically just causes the floor to basically unseat itself. It just doesn't get the I suppose the downward force to actually make it work properly. And around Monza, it's an incredibly fast circuit, but you wouldn't want the car to come loose somewhere at like Parabolica, which is exactly what happened to Charles Leclerc last year. It's been a weird weekend for Charles. He's sort of been conspicuous by his absence. He had a weird stop in, was it practice 2, where he suddenly came into the garage and said, I have to get out of the car. And I don't think we've got any info on what that was yet, but apparently he's been feeling a wee bit under the weather. So, it's a good performance considering, given Carlos is right there, and Carlos has been very much on his level for most of the season as well. I think it's indicative of their overall pace, as you said, but whether they can sort of hang around and sort of reduce the damage that I think the McLarens are going to cause tomorrow. I think they've just got their number. If they can stay there, then that's good. But they've got some reasonably strong competition behind them. I wouldn't expect them to hang around, but I'd be very happy if they did, because they sort of need to start making headway back into that fight with McLaren, because I think they're starting to lose the initiative a little bit.
Ironically enough, they have the deepest rear wing on they did the deepest rear wing at their home race, and there's no Mission Winnow branding on it currently because of the way that the tobacco rules go. After that, we have Carlos Sainz, who had another. He also had a sort of an issue, in practice 2 as well. It's not been. It's really been a sort of a rough weekend for him. Luckily, didn't get into the rear of his car, Mikael, but it was sort of it was a big hit that he withstood, and I think it's going to knock your confidence a little bit, and maybe says why, he's not fighting with Charles that much.
Yeah, I could definitely be that too. I guess, the fact that he is now just behind Charles again, shows that he kind of at least got over the crash pretty quickly, and the car seemingly didn't sustain any like permanent damage or something that they need to worry about for tomorrow, hopefully. But you didn't really see much of the Ferraris today in the sprint. Not that there was much, but they would do. They had Hamilton in front and Giovinazzi behind, so there's a nice little gap of probably 10 seconds or so where they fit nicely. So it was quite a boring one for them. Kind of saving grace the fact that they're both up there now for tomorrow as well. Starting 5th and 6th is not too bad. Just as has been said, like the McLaren starting so far ahead is going to make it a bit more of a problem for them than maybe it should be.
Yeah, I think it's going to. I think, like you say, it's really going to. It's going to hurt their championship chances. But on the other hand, it's not the worst thing that could have happened. Bearing in mind how they've performed thus far, like just coming in just over the weekend. You mentioned him, Mikael, but Antonio Giovinazzi, sort of really bringing in, just I don't know how to lead into this, but it's just. It's amazing that it's amazing that he's in eighth, and he's really sort of showing how good he can be. It's a shame that his seat is probably up for grabs from someone else next season, Aaron.
Yes, it's kind of almost too little too late, isn't it? Because all of a sudden he's potentially out of a seat. Bottas has been confirmed as one driver. He hasn't got the luxury of Ferrari sort of holding his hand into that seat again. And now all of a sudden he's delivering. It doesn't make much sense, because if you were comfortable within the team, you'd be able to deliver. But maybe he's one of those drivers where you have to really turn the heat up on him to get the very best out of him. It's hard to say whether this will be enough to secure him a seat there for next year. But on the face of it, it's an excellent performance to be Q3 yesterday in qualifying and then to keep it there today and keep yourself out of trouble. I mean, he was not really noticed that much until Perez came up behind him, and he did a fairly solid job of keeping him behind. So, he's earned himself 7th on the grid, and you can only applaud that, because really you'd have expected Giovinazzi to fall backwards from that position, because we've seen him qualify, I say out of position, but maybe above expectation, and then just sort of drop back down the order and finish in and around Raikkonen, who's sort of 14th, 15th. And it kind of happened in Zandvoort as well, but it'll be interesting to see how he does in front of the Tifosi. Bit of home support for him. Maybe that's what he needs. It's just a little bit of love.
Yeah. Can you imagine in the Alfa Romeo boardroom, they were thinking, right, to get the best out of him, we're just going to have to constantly say that we're going to kill his family, go all mafia on him, just to get a bit of Godfather. God, I don't know how that's going to make it past the edit. Moving swiftly on to Sergio Perez. It wasn't a great qualifying yesterday. He's made it up some places, but it's kind of. It's not where you'd want Sergio Perez to be, because I don't think it. We saw how much trouble Stroll was giving Sergio, Steve, in this sort of short format of the sprint. Over a race distance, it might be very, very easy for him to get held up in the same position he is in now.
Yeah, besides practice 2, which was obviously interrupted with Carlos's crash, he's been sort of there, like that sort of low end of the top 10. I don't quite understand what's going on with him, because he's a bit like Seb this season. He's had some incredible highs. Like you look at Baku, he was basically the only thing that kept Red Bull from having just an absolute horror weekend. But then you have performances like this, which just isn't reflective of the sort of driver that we know he is. I mean, he did incredible things when he was at Racing Point and Sauber and McLaren, and those were all fairly, I wouldn't use the word inferior, but they weren't race-winning cars. The Red Bull is a race-winning car. It's notoriously hard to drive, and I do believe that there is some element of just adaptation there. I mean, he's not the first driver who's struggled with adaptation. He certainly won't be the last, but it's reassuring that Red Bull have put faith in him to sign him for another season. But I don't this isn't really where they it's definitely not where they want him to be, especially considering we're in the business end of 2021 now. Both the championships are still up for grabs, and I think I mean whilst I think I've got a good idea of who's going to take out the Drivers' Championship, I think the Constructors' Championship is all going to come down to whether Checo gets his act together in terms of consistency, because right now it's just not there, and they can't rely on just Max on their own. It's just strange watching him struggle to get past a car that we know isn't particularly good in the form of the Aston Martin. So yeah, I don't have a huge amount of confidence for tomorrow. I think he'll just sort of circulate in that sort of low end of the top 10, and you know, he'll bring home a couple of points. But I mean, he wasn't able to make any sort of headway into the race at all. I mean, Giovinazzi wasn't really troubled by him all that much at all. It was just a strange sort of performance. Obviously, with a longer race, some more depth of strategy and that sort of thing, he could do something miraculous, but I can't see it. It's been a strange and very, very suboptimal weekend for Checo so far.
Yeah, I think, you know, if I was to sort of take an armchair analyst on it, and let's look at it, but I'd say that maybe, you know, when you strip all the downforce off the Red Bull, it makes it even more predisposed to Max's driving style. Potentially, that's, you know, that could be it. But yeah, as you say, it's kind of an underwhelming weekend, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better. That though will be good news for a certain Lance Stroll, because obviously, like, you know, as we say, it was quite difficult for Sergio to get past, and it was really causing him trouble. You know, maybe you don't expect much from the Aston Martin at this point, but bearing in mind it's got a Mercedes power unit in the end, maybe it can, you know, over a longer distance, Mikael, it can actually it can get past, and it can sort of affect an overtake, you know, on the Red Bull where it couldn't today.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to see how well he was able to defend against Perez for many laps before, I mean, eventually he got past after, you know, making a practice launch first. But yeah, I don't know what to expect from them really, because obviously the Astons are in a mix with the Alpines, at least what it looks like from today. Just on the edge of that, like P10 or P9, I guess, position. So it's like, yeah, they might get some points, I guess. I mean, whether it's going to be Stroll or Vettel, I guess you could just throw the dice and see which one of them is going to land on top. But I feel like there's going to be more of them fighting amongst the Alpines instead of, you know, being able to take Perez. I mean, I feel like Giovinazzi is probably going to fall tomorrow downwards, so maybe that'll do, you know, bring them a few positions up. But I just can't see them, you know, challenging Perez unless he has an awful start and falls behind them. Then it might take him, I don't know, 20, 30 laps to get past all of them.
Yeah. Speaking of, you know, taking 20, 30 laps to get past people, we've got Alonso behind, and, you know, if it was a normal qualifying session, we'd say it'd be, you know, an amazing place to start, bearing in mind he'd have free tyre choice, and he'll be moving one place up, obviously, from Bottas, but it's not. I think they get free tyre choice from the sprint qualifying format, but still, Alonso looked fairly racy and looked like he was making his way up to causing issues and breaking into the top 10, Aaron. But you think over a race distance, the Alpine actually looks fairly good, and it looks quite competitive.
Yeah, it looks like it's like Mikael said, it's in that bracket with the Aston Martins. I think they mentioned on the Sky Sports coverage that Aston Martin haven't done a Monza-specific package, so they're supposedly carrying a bit more wing, and maybe Alpine have been able to trim their car out a little bit because they were able to move up a couple of places. So they initially started 2 Aston Martins and then the 2 Alpines, and now Alonso's got in between the Aston Martins. So they're probably locked in for another 50 odd laps of duking it out between the 4 of them, which could be quite fun to watch. But it's probably only going to be for, at best, 9th place, maybe 8th, if there's some more carnage ahead. Because what you'll probably see is, like Mikael mentioned again, Giovinazzi will fall down the order, and then Perez will clear off, and there'll be a nice big gap to the Ferraris ahead for him to accelerate into. And then however long it takes Alonso and Stroll and Vettel and Ocon to get through Giovinazzi will define their race in terms of whether they can actually go with Perez. And if they can go with him and sort of sit in the slipstream, that might bring them along, and they might be able to collect up on some carnage up ahead, but it's all defined by how quickly they get past Giovinazzi and if they can get past him.
Yeah, it's a little difficult. It might be a sort of a Petrov scenario in that you've got big long straights and you've got people like Alonso struggling to get past him.
Yeah, you can just imagine the radio messages.
I remember this about 10 years ago. Yeah, you mentioned earlier it's the other Aston Martin sort of. It's kind of weird to see Vettel. He's not for someone who's driven in some of the best cars in the world. He's not done actually that well at Monza, in all of its forms, Steve. And it's most likely, and as Aaron said, it's probably going to be a duking it out with the Ocons and Strolls. Ocon, Stroll, Alonso. They hoping to get each other past, and that might be the battle that they have for the race.
Yeah, that winning when was it 2008 in the Toro Rosso side, Monza's not really been a happy hunting ground for Seb, and I think that tradition will continue. He's same as Checo for me. He's had some very, very high highs, but then he's also had some very, very drastic results. Zandvoort was probably a weekend he'd rather forget. Some of that was out of his control, but he's like that form's just carried over into Monza. There is an element of limitation with the car that will play a part. If they've not bought a Monza specific package, I imagine they'll be using something along the lines of what they took to Spa, or something fairly similar to it, which is handy because it was obviously never raced, so it'll be like brand new. But I'm not really too sure on what'll happen. We've seen Seb, climb up the grid from absolutely nowhere. We've also seen him completely disappear to the back and sort of play with Haas for 40 laps. So it's a tricky one. I think I've said it in a couple of prior episodes. This season really has been a holding pattern for every team. We were expected to be on the new cars and that sort of thing this year, and everything just sort of got every team has had to push pause for a year, and some of the teams have taken that and made lemonade, and Aston Martin have sort of still got a lemon, which works in very, very specific windows, but for the most part it just looks like a fairly awkward car to drive, which doesn't really have many redeeming qualities. When it has performed well, it's because the drivers have put it in positions where it doesn't deserve to be. I don't think Monza is going to give them that opportunity, though. It's a very high speed track. That car is quite just it's not draggy, but it's quite unbalanced and just not a particularly happy car at high speed. So yeah, I'm not expecting Seb to work wonders tomorrow, but if he manages to climb up into the top 10 and bring home a point or two, then I think that's something that they can be happy with. Because we've seen results get determined by a handful of points, so that 1 or 2 points that Seb could potentially get this weekend will count at the end of the season. So yeah, we'll see, but I'm not too encouraged after today's performance.
Yeah, Aston Martin sort of looking forward instead of back. Maybe a bit too far forward when it comes to 2022. I guess we'll be sort of biting our, holding our tongues when they're very, very fast in 2022, and the money they saved on the Monza spec rear wing goes into some kind of race win. And below that, we've got Ocon, we've got the other Alpine, Mikael. He didn't really sort of feature in the race at all, and not even in a good way. It was just kind of him being in 13th, just ahead of the Williams, which I don't know if that says anything so much about the Williams, or if it's just maybe he's not getting on with the car in this particular track. But he won not too long ago, and it's kind of weird to see him not buoyed by that and maybe a bit faster.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It is quite a disappointing thing to see him be the last one of the quadruplet that we've been talking about. But Yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I would hope that he would be more feisty in the start. At least try and get Vettel and just join Alonso in their like fight with Stroll. Yeah, I mean, you brought a good point about the fact that the Williams has actually stayed relatively close to all of those, but especially to Ocon as well. So I don't know if it probably is just that the car doesn't fit the track too well. I mean, we'll see what they're able to do tomorrow, but from this position, I don't see there being much success for him.
Yeah, I think it might be through the corners, ironically enough, because they were fastest in the speed traps, or at least Alonso was in practice a couple of times at least. So it might just be through the corners. They don't have what they need, and as the pundits have said a lot, you need the corners to be good. Otherwise, you're hurting down every single straight. After that, we have Latifi ahead of Russell, so it's no longer Mr. Saturday, Aaron. He's been out-qualified by a teammate, and that's sort of, no one's going to want that ignominy if you're George Russell like that.
Yeah, his streak has gone, hasn't it? I hadn't noticed that, because in my head I've seen an 18-lap race. Yesterday I saw qualifying. This is how bizarre this whole format is. But that's decent for Latifi. I mean, Russell had a bit of a problem on the start, but for Latifi to jump up, he jumped up 2 places, so that's a solid move for him. Okay, he probably benefited from Gasly's accident, but he's doing a solid job at Latifi, and I think he's more than earned his seat for next year. And again, this is something that proves it. We didn't really see very much of Latifi or Russell because the battle was more in front of them, but it's just good experience for him, I guess, at the end of the day. An extra 18 laps of racing in a Formula One car, can't say no to that. And I don't know, I'm not sure I can call this out qualifying Russell, but to be on the grid ahead of Russell for tomorrow, that'll do his confidence the world of good.
Yeah. I've just had a thought to myself that actually this qualifying format would perfectly suit David Coulthard. Can't qualify, but can race. Yeah.
Oh, imagine how many championships he'd have won. Probably still 0.
Yeah, Yana Trulli would be rolling his grave, but would be rolling, just not want to be a part of it at all.
No.
After that, we've got. I mean, it doesn't matter for the guy, but it's Russell because he's got the seat for next year. So Steve, he doesn't exactly need to prove anything. He honestly just needs to get to Mercedes, see out the rest of the season because it's all good from here.
He's checked out. He's driving with one hand on the wheel. He's got a Prosecco in the other. He's got the Argos catalogue rolling around in his head to decide what furniture he wants to line his apartment with. He's already lined up his Mercedes for next. I'm kidding. No, it's I think the fact that he's behind Nick shows just how well Latifi did to hold him off. I mean, just if I can go back very, very quickly, I just want to give a shout out to Nick Latifi because he's been sort of wholly forgotten about with the news around George, which is also very, very exciting, although we all saw it coming. I think Williams have made an excellent choice in keeping Nick Latifi on for another year. He does fund that, or his dad does fund that team, but he does actually produce solid results. As for George, yeah, good. I mean, this is qualifying, even though it doesn't feel like it at all. I'll be honest, I don't particularly like this sprint qualifying format. It just doesn't really do it for me. But yeah, like George has done well. He's you'd never necessarily expect Williams to do well at a circuit like Monza. I mean, I say that, and I think of what he did at Spa in qualifying, but under normal conditions, high-speed track, low downforce, that car's a little bit draggy, a little bit bloated in areas where it shouldn't be. It's a little bit old-fashioned, still uses, like a nose philosophy that's now 3 years old. It's just, there's not been a huge amount of aerodynamic development until very recently, because they've had no money. And this year, obviously, with the token system, it's been very limited in what they could do. And a lot of it was to do with the rear of the car, just getting that all sorted out. So now that they've got the foundations of a sort of a revived team, things will only improve. But at a high speed circuit in a car like that, you can't really expect much more. I think it just Nick just drove better, which he's allowed to do, and I think that's an incredible job considering the caliber of driver that George Russell is. But tomorrow will be a wee bit different. It really depends on the first couple of laps and where either of the two end up, because we know that if Russell gets ahead of Latifi, he'll sort of break away pretty quickly, and Latifi will act as rear gunner, so that'll give him priority for any sort of opportunity of undercut, priority for stops and strategy and that sort of thing as well. So it's a tricky one to call, but I can't see them getting much further than they are. It's not a circuit that favours Williams, so that's about where we expect them to be.
We're hoping to be the more sort of Imola Williams rather than the Williams that they've been at a number of other tracks. After that, we have Tsunoda, who is the highlight really of AlphaTauri's weekend thus far, and honestly, just is almost a living embodiment, or the AlphaTauri team are a living embodiment of why the teams probably don't like this qualifying format that much, Mikael.
Yeah, I mean, well, an awful day for them, obviously, today, not only to have, Gasly go off in turn 3, but also for Tsunoda to have that unlucky touch with Kubica, I think, and having to change his front wing afterwards, which obviously already made it impossible for him to really fight for any solid positions. I mean, starting 16th is not, or actually 15th with Bottas dropping down. Starting in that area, it's not that foreign to him, unfortunately, I think, but it's not that foreign, so he'll be in a decent position. I mean, Gasly has shown that the car has speed. It's just that, Yuki has had trouble tapping into that same speed that Pierre has. So, I mean, we'll see what he's able to do from there. I think he should, or I'm hoping that he does clear the Williamses quite quickly, but could be a tough place for him as well. And then a question of just whether or not he's able to even fight with the Alpines and the Aston Martins. But yeah, probably not going to bring any points from tomorrow. And then no points for the entire team, I guess, with Gasly that far down as well.
Yeah, of course. It sort of looks like it's going to be a hard day at the office tomorrow, because he's left a lot of work on his plate today. Next up, then we've got someone you can really all things considered, you can't really expect to do too much better. Is Robert Kvitsa, Aaron. I've completely skipped someone because you know what? I just don't want him to be there, so I accidentally skipped him.
It's such a surprise that he is that high up. Yeah,
that too. It actually pains me that he's been genuinely quicker than Mick the entire time. Is car number 9, because I'm not saying his name. professional idiot. But yeah, I don't want to talk about him. Can you find any words for him?
Well, I can actually. He was the biggest mover of the sprint. He gained 3 places, which was more than anybody else. But
we found a positive.
But you caveat that with he started last, and both AlphaTauris pitted or went off, and then he passed Kvitsa as well. I think when Kvitsa
if there was
spun.
ever an example for marginal gains, I think you've just found.
Always find a positive in something. I mean, another positive is he didn't ram anybody off the road. He didn't upset Mick. He didn't get in anybody's way. So basically he drove the car and didn't crash. So well done.
That's actually an achievement. That's genuinely an achievement.
He gets like DG on Xbox or something.
Goodness me. After that, we've got Kvitsa, who got overtaken by Mazepin. That's embarrassing. No, he got a bit unlucky, but he also kind of really shouldn't have been there on Tsunoda, should he, Steve?
No, that was entirely Robert's fault. I felt quite bad because I saw Robert facing the wrong way and an AlphaTauri sort of disappearing down the road, and I thought immediately, what's Yuki done? But I watched the onboard, and entirely his fault. But just bear in mind, he finished higher up than he qualified for qualifying, if that makes sense. But purely because, Gasly DNF'd and Bottas goes to the back of the grid. But, we'll just overlook that and say that, Bobby Cubes gained 2 places. Considering he was on his way to Zandvoort as part of a TV crew for a Polish sporting television program, the fact that he's keeping pace with the grid is really good. It highlights a couple of things. One, he's still got it, even though he's probably not going to be a front-running Formula One driver ever again. That's fair enough. Also highlights just how poor of a car that Williams back in 2019 was, because he probably could have done a lot more than he did if he had the right equipment. But it's a really good performance considering he didn't expect to be there a couple of weeks ago. It was just he was just sort of doing his thing, I think he's doing DTM, Le Mans, that sort of thing, but not F1, not in a racing capacity. So good effort by him. If he keeps out of trouble tomorrow, he'll probably finish ahead of both Haas's, because those two are at each other's throats at the moment, so I expect them to trip each other up in some way, shape or form, and it will be entirely the number 9 car's fault. But he's got some other cars around him to play with and actually battle on track. So he seems to be enjoying it. There was footage of him, I think just before FP2. Big smile on his face. So he looks like he's enjoying it, which is great. And it's nice that he can come back to F1 and sort of, his more recent memories of F1 might be a wee bit happier than when he left the sport in 2019.
Yeah. I think you always got to put an asterisk next to Kvitsa's results for these couple of races, because bearing in mind, even as you say, even though he's doing WEC and DTM, which are sort of more downforce cars, although DTM less so than they used to be, it's still not Formula One, and there is still a jump. After that, we have, it's sad for me to say really, because I don't like seeing him below his teammate, is Mick Schumacher. Obviously, he's not going to start last where you'd expect if he was behind his teammate, but it's kind of it's not the best race. It's not the best thing to happen in the world for him, is it, Mikael?
No, not at all. And that's what we were talking about in the beginning of the season, because we all knew Haas was going to be the worst car on the grid by far. So the only question was how badly he's going to be. He's going to beat his teammate, and that really this weekend hasn't happened. And of course, most of the time you just see them, as has been said, like battling it out with each other, which is not what you want if you are Mick Schumacher. People are expecting you to get up to Ferrari in the next 5 years, probably, if it all goes to plan with your career. So to be struggling to beat and losing out sometimes to your teammate is not that good. But yeah, I also feel like maybe, he's already said that there is nothing to do to repair his relationship, and maybe he just doesn't feel like fighting too much anymore, because maybe just waiting for next season, hoping for a way better car, and then leaving number 9 in his rear window, in his mirrors.
Yeah, I think as you say, it might be a waste of effort to bother fighting it out. I thought it was quite ironic when I read the headline that Nikita Mazepin said that Schumacher needed his family to come and finish his battles for him. Mick Schumacher's always been better on the second season, so that might actually suit him going into next year in a better Haas and in a developed Haas, and and he'll just leave the other guy behind. And then sort of the guy who'll be sort of leading up the rear is Pierre Gasly, obviously. And as I said earlier, it's that he showed right there with the reason why the teams probably hate the sprint qualifying format, because it's just a load of extra risk in another first turn, and not in really that much reward. Is Aaron?
No, he had everything to lose in the grand scheme of things for AlphaTauri from that position. And thinking about the accident, I think it was Ricciardo as well in Bahrain, where he just sort of tapped his rear wheel, broke his wing, and ruined his race, if I remember correctly. And there he is again, bumping into Daniel. There's not really much more you can say apart from the fact that he was just very lucky to not have a more serious accident. Luckily at the Curva Grande, there always has been a really big runoff area and a good tyre wall that we've not really ever seen put to much use, thankfully. I mean, if I was Pierre, I'd be going to sleep tonight praying that Mazepin crashes at exactly the right point to cause a red flag or a safety car that means you can jump to the front again and fluke another win at Monza, because apart from a well-timed safety car or a red flag or something crazy happening up front, I don't see Pierre getting anywhere near the points tomorrow. He'll make some progress. He'll probably get maybe into the mid-teens, maybe 13th, 14th, which will be a solid effort. But I can't see him threatening the points. And first of all, he's got Bottas, who will be coming through from behind him. So if he can sort of tag along Valtteri's coattails, then again, like I said, with the Alpine and Aston Martin fight, if they can hook onto Perez, if Gasly can hook onto Bottas, he can make his way through and maybe gain a couple of extra positions that way.
Yeah, I think Gasly, is fast enough to both sit in the slipstream, but also not fast enough to overtake Bottas. So as you say, you might actually be able to sort of, follow him through right to the front, like a BMW driver with an ambulance. I'm not going to get a car brand endorsement anytime soon, am I?
BMW just crossed us off.
Yeah, that's it. That's gone. We won't get to drive the big boy M8.
No, but Mercedes and Audi are giving us a nice big tick.
I'm doing the big brain play. That's an IQ 900 play. That is. But that brings us sort of to the end of the sort of proceedings. That's it's not necessarily the grid, but it's how things petered out today in the race. Normally we do driver of the day. I will be doing it, obviously. We'll go round, but it feels. I just want to say it feels a bit weird to be saying driver of the day. As you guys have said, it just feels like we've watched a race, but we haven't. It feels like you've watched the first half of a race and then it ends. But yeah, if we start with you, Mikael, who's your driver of the day?
I mean, really don't have many options here. Go either for Bottas or Verstappen, but I'll go for Bottas because he pulled out a performance that, well, to be honest, we've been waiting for the entire season pretty much. I mean, unfortunately, it brings him 3 points and P20 starting position. So not the best timing maybe, but shows that he still definitely has some kind of hunger. So we'll see what he's able to do next year with the Alfa Romeo. But yeah, for today, he'll get my driver today.
And then if we go on to you, Aaron.
Well, the numbers tell me Mazepin because he made up 3 places, but I can't give it to him on principle. The 2 Ferrari boys impressed me because Sainz crashed in FP2 and Charles obviously not feeling very well. But I'm actually going to give it to Daniel Ricciardo because he needs a proper result to really kickstart his McLaren career. And this, please let it be it. Please. He gets my driver of the day for the sprint.
Yeah, we've just sort of jinxed it now. It won't happen. It's going to be really unfortunate.
See the meme of the guy falling out the window.
Yeah. Steve, who's your driver of the day?
Lando Norris for me. He's 21 years old, holding off basically a giant of the sport for 18 laps. I mean, I had both his onboard and Lewis's onboard up for, I think, from around lap 10 onwards. And he was just bang, 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 consistent every lap, like didn't miss a beat. Lewis was opposite lock in the gravel coming out of, he was on the gravel coming out of Curva Grande at one point, actually, like just very, very slightly, but you saw the back end just completely step out and then tuck back in. And just he was having a very hard time even, like keeping up with him. So for me, it's Lando Norris just for keeping a very, calm, level head. I can't see many drivers being able to do that for 18 laps. Alonso's done it for 11, so really, what I'm saying is Lando's better than Alonso now. So,
and there's obviously 3 world champions now. It's all 3 world championships now. It's all good. That's what that means. The numbers crunch.
Indeed.
Yeah. I'm going to go for Latifi for driver of the day because, as has been said before, he out-qualified Russell. Yeah, he ended the streak before Russell even left. So that's Latifi's claim to fame there. Turns out if if you want a pay driver who's going to invest in your team, get a Canadian one. They're great.
Yeah.
Latifi.
Good old Latifi.
Maybe that's where Villeneuve went wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't a pay drive.
Yeah, don't tell Glenn Freeman that though.
No. I'll be honest, I don't know the significance of that.
Glenn's a massive Villeneuve fan.
Yeah. He's like, no.
Oh,
Matt Gallagher is Charles Leclerc. Like, oh, did that stop? So Matt Gallagher, WTF1, what he is for Charles Leclerc. Glenn Freeman for Jacques Villeneuve.
Did he watch him at Le Mans? He wasn't great. I'm not going to do the predictions. I don't want to predict it. I genuinely don't know what happened, and I hope no one else does either.
Mazepin's going to win.
Actually, yeah, we'll just take a bold prediction. We'll go with a bold prediction. I'm running the show. It's my. Anyone got a bold prediction? Well, I've got Mazepin for the win for 1.
Maybe that's too bold.
Steve, I'll say Tsunoda gets points.
Oh, Tsunoda gets points. Yeah, We'll take that.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to throw Giovinazzi points in instead of the Mazepin win.
It's not really bold because I can. It's definitely within the realm of possibility now. Ricciardo podium.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like it's. I know it's not exciting. I just want it to happen. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, Aaron said it before. He needs something, like just anything to just sort of, reassure himself that he is there for a reason and that McLaren have taken him on because they see his worth. Because I can't imagine the mind games that he plays with himself sometimes. I mean, everybody sort of has elements of, moments of doubt, and I expect he's had them, and he just needs something to just go, right, yep, I can still do this, I can still, drive. So I think Ricciardo podium, failing that, Andrea Moda 1-2. Bold prediction.
Starting from 1993.
What about one of those, maybe a Simtech Ford in 3rd? I don't know. Just something equally shit. I don't know.
I was going to say Pierre Gasly in back to first again, and no one knows how.
Shenanigans. Red flag.
Someone was going to say, I can't remember. I was going to say one, and I can't remember what it is. Oh, Alonso for the win. There we go. Alonso for the win would be funny.
Well, if we get a red flag, if we get an accident that's a yellow initially, and then they red flag it because of debris or something like that, and everybody pits besides Alonso because, big brain moment.
Big brain, sure. 2008.
Yeah.
September. Yeah. September brain moment. Thought I saw Flavio on the TV coverage earlier, so stranger things have happened.
Oh God.
I don't think I did, but when you just like, I have seen a big white man, with white hair.
He wasn't walking around with a book that just says Singapore Strategy 2009, was he? Or...
Yeah, It was printed on the back of Nelson Piquet's P45. That joke doesn't work for half of you. I've just realised. That's a very specific joke.
I got it.
I got it.
Do you have P45s? You know what? I'm going to move straight on from that, and just before this gets any more off the rails, I'm just going to give you guys an opportunity to sort of plug where you're from and what you do. So if we start with you, Steve.
So I'm one of the mod / admin / team people for Formula Shakedown, which is a Facebook group. We've got a few thousand members. It's mainly Australia Pacific based, but you can be from anywhere, another planet, as long as you're a decent person and you like open wheel stuff. So it's not just Formula One, it's F2, F3, IndyCar, Super Formula, S5000, TRS. Basically, if you can see wheels sticking out on bits, then we'll have it. Yeah, it's really good. We've got a podcast now as well. It is fit for human consumption, I promise. We've got 2 episodes, and the third one is being recorded next weekend. And I think we're working on getting it onto Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other various platforms. So when that happens, I will let you know, and we'll hopefully get some people from Grid Talk and other podcasts on there in the future as well.
I'm sure there'll be entirely sociable hours.
Oh, indeed.
Mikael, where can we find your writings?
Well, mostly either on F1 Chronicle with the podcast here, or a lot of on Sportlight doing the race reports and quality reports. So you can check out my stuff on there.
And Aaron, what do you do?
So I do the 5 Red Lights, which is a YouTube channel. So I do race reviews where I rate the drivers' performances and race previews, and a few other little bits in between. We do a driver of the month vote because I think driver of the day is just rubbish. If you've got a good car and you're at the back, I mean, Bottas is getting driver of the day tomorrow. It's a given. That's my bugbear with it. So I do a monthly vote for that and a few other bits in between, and that's on YouTube. Search 5 Red Lights.
Cool. I've got to plug myself, I think, now. But basically, if you like memes, I write meme review articles. Work has prohibited me, but I promise I'm getting back into them. So if you like memes and you don't want a serious take on whatever we've just gone for, as if this is serious, gone through, then come and have a look at that on sportlightpro.com. Right, I've got to do the Facebook Live stuff. So if you're watching live, you'll know if you're watching live, but if you're listening after the fact, we now stream this show live on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Formula One Grid Talk. And then if you ring the bell icon, like all you good YouTubers say, then you'll be notified of our future shows so that you'll know when we go live. Also, if you do like to listen to it after the fact, maybe in the car, maybe while you're having a bath, then we're now available on Verbal, as well as Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, and Pocket Casts. You just need to search F1 Grid Talk. We have a large back catalogue of shows of over 130 episodes, including interviews. That's interviews plural. We have at least one. We have 2, sorry, with Mario Isola from Pirelli. So if you'd like to know sort of some of the situation around what happened at Spa a couple of weekends ago, then you can go and take a look at that as well. I'd highly recommend it. And we have retrospective pieces on Tiregate and Senna. And if you're still stuck for what to do between shows, then check out our subreddit F1 Grid Talk to give us suggestions for what we can do to improve the show, and perhaps subscribe to our Patreon for mics, lights, and better recording equipment for our presenters. We'll be back tomorrow for our analysis and reaction to the Italian Grand Prix. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and goodbye. There we go. Right, I'm going to have to go back to the live stream now because I'm sure there's questions on there for me to look at, and we can go round through there a bit if you guys have got time.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hang around for a little bit. Ugh.
Yeah, Conor Walker says that would be pretty funny if there's no pressure on Bottas and he just dominated the rest of the season.
It would just be total Bottas, wouldn't it?
So,
of course, it would happen. It was like Rosberg in 2015. As soon as the championship was done, he won every race, and then started unscrewing the bolts in Hamilton's engine.
that was a habit of Schumacher's as well. Whenever he sort of wrapped up the title, he didn't back off completely, but the pressure was off, and he just sort of loosened up, and then you just got some exciting races.
He had the one hand and the prosecco, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other hand, just looking through the Argos book. Like it'll be interesting to see if there is any sort of like noticeable change in Bottas's on-track demeanor. He's usually fairly sort of, I don't want to use the word submissive, but he just does what he's told. Now that he knows his future, and definitely sounds like the Alfa Romeo thing is a long-term gig, he's got that job security, so he could probably just turn around and Valtteri, it's James, and just unplugs his headset and just keeps going. Like I wouldn't put it past him. Like he's definitely got the stones to back that sort of thing up. Like we've heard some of his radio messages after a good result and that sort of thing, that to whom it may concern. He'll have a point to prove. I think he'll want to sort of show Mercedes, hey, you probably should have given me a wee bit more thought before you kicked me out. But yeah, it is what it is. But I'll be very keen to see what happens from this point forward.
He's going to need to win some races because Verstappen's going to be right up there, and Verstappen's going to need points taken off of him from a Mercedes point of view. Even if Perez is sort of milling around the middle of the top 10 still.
Well, that's the thing. Like that engine change suddenly doesn't seem like a particularly good idea. It's I think
it's backfired, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bitten them in the ass massively. Like all weekend it just looked like Mercedes were just going to boss it. That's what I thought. I was thinking, it's going to be a Mercedes 1-2. Verstappen will be third or thereabouts. But it's all gone a bit wrong. So yeah, I don't expect Bottas to get into the top 10, to be honest. But if he does, that'll be massive achievement. But as you pointed out, that car's not designed to work in traffic, and we've seen what happens when Bottas gets sort of stuck in traffic. He becomes stodgy porridge. Just doesn't go anywhere.
It happened last year at Monza, didn't it? He got stuck, and Hamilton came through and finished like a place behind him, or there was a car between them.
Happened at Imola that year as well, but I think that's because he had half of Charles Leclerc's Ferrari lodged in his barge board. So
yeah.
Just all of the drag from the car.
Basically, yeah. How do you slow a Mercedes down by half a second a lap? Give it Ferrari.
I
think it's actually an interesting point. I think you mentioned earlier, but doing bits on Lewis's engine. I think the reliability is going to come into it as well, because the Red Bulls have not had the rub of the green when it comes to reliability at this point.
But would you say that's more due to the crash damage? I mean, I don't think they've had a proper engine failure.
Yeah, but the crash damage. Basically, I'm just saying, if Bottas was maybe given a bit more money to just conveniently have accidents.
What are you suggesting, Owen?
No, nothing. What?
You've seen Flavio Briatore and he's brainwashed you.
Yeah. I can't really hold
sabotaging.
Are we going to hear Valtteri? It's Flavio on the radio instead.
Can you imagine?
I'm holding Nelson Piquet hostage, do as I say.
Actually, no. Oh no! Actually, my brain went to a way darker place, and it was just like, Max, it's Flavio. We've got Nelson Piquet to hold your girlfriend hostage.
Oh God,
that's probably too far.
That's definitely not being in the edit.
No. Why do you think I'd wait until after the show?
No, I think with the with the like the engine swaps and that sort of thing, the real question is when Red Bull decide to do it, because I think if they were sort of serious about just not letting Mercedes get away with, like just walking away at Monza, but just accepting that they were probably going to be on the back foot, I would have expected them to be like, hey, we've done Max's engine change for this weekend or whatever. But it sort of puts them in a bit of a pickle, because all the tracks going from here favor Red Bull quite nicely. So they've now got that problem of deciding when to if they need to. I think that they absolutely will, when they pull the trigger on that and actually take the penalty. I'm sorry about what's going on by lighting on my camera, by the way. I don't know what it's doing, but yeah, like that is a bit of a predicament for them. But yeah, it sort of depends on how the championship plays out. If they can wrap it up before Abu Dhabi, then they'll obviously just do it at the very last round, and it doesn't matter. They've sort of wrapped it up, but I think it's going to go down to the wire.
There's talk of them doing it at Sochi, and I think while we don't think of Sochi as a great racing track, it's fairly straightforward to overtake there if you've got enough. Yeah. I mean, it's not like here at Monza where there's such low drag that the DRS makes next to no difference.
Yeah.
At Sochi, they've got to carry some wing to get through, especially the long turn 3. So deploying the DRS gives you a fairly hefty shove down the straight.
God, it could actually make Sochi exciting. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I mean,
if they both did it, Hamilton and Verstappen, because there's been talk of Hamilton needing an engine, put them both at the back, and then like it's a McLaren and Ferrari front row, and just see what happens.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
I'd be so down for that.
Yeah.
I might even stay up and watch it if that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. But they wouldn't.
How do you make Russia worth
that would
it
be
for
the
everyone
last
who's
Sochi,
faster
right?
back?
As well. That is the last one.
Yeah, because they've got this
Petersburg.
new. Is it St. Peter? Yeah,
it's near
So
St.
that
Petersburg.
would be very symbolic that the last race in Sochi would actually be one that's full of action, because you have the top two at the very back.
That's quite interesting. To be honest, a good time to take an engine change would maybe be a race where the half points were awarded and you barely did any running anyway.
God, when did we have that? That's
never happened. That's never happened.
No, I can't.
Never will happen.
Yeah.
Actually,
imagine, if you will, a race where they did 2 laps under the safety car and
Just
then had a
PCFIA.
podium ceremony. Yeah, that would have been perfect.
I'm just thinking,
missed opportunity.
If I were a statistician and I was significantly smarter, I'd have suggested. Well, they fixed Perez's car on the grid. How quick is an engine change in Formula One, and could you do it in the time that they were stopped?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a couple of hours generally.
If you got both sets of mechanics working on it,
it's
probably
not
sub 2 hours.
Yeah, it's not. It's a process, but yeah, because they did. Oh gosh.
Okay, I kind of suggested this as a joke, but it is within the realms of possibility, isn't it?
I mean, the rate they throw red flags these days, it's definitely not out of the realms of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Masi does love a red flag, so I mean, it's yeah. So there is potential for them to do that. I do wonder if it's in the regulations for that because I think if with a red flag, the only thing that you can change is obviously tires and damage.
You could claim that it's damaged.
So what if you do a Maverick Vinales MotoGP and just sit on the limiter for a couple of laps beforehand and then just wheel it in? What happened? Oh, the limiter's broken.
Mate, you should hear the knock.
They'll put a smoke machine in there which sets off at a certain point. Oh, look, there's smoke coming out the back. It's clearly broken.
Yeah. That's a very Ferrari move, but I like it.
When they take it out miraculously, oh, look, it works.
Ferrari wouldn't have to put the smoke machine in; they just put the engine in.
Last year's engine.
Any of their V12s.
Oh God!
They had an attrition rate of 50%.
God.
Yeah, that's
the reason Alesi didn't win races.
Yeah, that's not fantastic. That's not good.
That's McLaren and Mercedes in the early 2000s level.
Yeah, what was it? MP418, the size 0, buddy.
Oh yeah,
Was it 2004? 3?
Yeah, but it came out in 2004 and just kept blowing up, kept catching fire.
Yeah, because Adrian Newey wanted to redesign it, and he basically got overruled.
Yeah.
And they just had to stick with an absolute dog of a car. Apparently, that car did race though in 2004, just as the MP418, I think.
Yeah, it was the 18D or something. Well, the 17D was the 03 car, and the 18 was the first 04 car, and then he redesigned it, and they won at Spa.
Yeah.
So, imagine if he'd been allowed to redesign it for 04, and they might have won the championship that year.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Especially with Raikkonen and that sort of thing on board, they actually had the opportunity to do that. So yeah,
or at least they'd give Ferrari a good fight.
Yeah.
Instead of the absolute. Oh God, I try not to remember it, but I do because it just I grew up watching Michael Schumacher just win every race, just absolutely bossed it. It was terribly dull. It cemented my father's distaste for Formula One, even to this day, that he still holds on to, even though it is actually relatively exciting this season, as I keep telling him. So if you're listening, Dad, watch Formula One. He won't be. He'll be fast asleep.
I think before we keep Steve up any longer, and he just
on that note.
I was going to say on that note, it's probably time to end it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you everyone from the live stream for watching. And we were, as I said earlier, we will be here tomorrow at 5:00 for the race review after what hopefully should be a fairly interesting race. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Everything fingers crossed.
It could be another Paul Ricard. You never know.
What, the good kind or the bad kind?
The good kind. The one we had this year. Yeah.
Because the other kind, I don't want to know.
I really should have been more specific. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be owned by. I thought you just meant owned by Slavica Eccleston.
with the track runoff areas designed by the Mr. On display team.
Right.
Alrighty.
Right.